dissatisfaction because I represent St. Michael's East. And we spend a lot of time laboring on the plantation estate of the Bell and Waterford, of course, sir, in your constituency. And one of the biggest issues as parliamentarians that we face is finding housing for people in that densely populated area, along with the other technical and scientific challenges that people are facing across both constituencies. Mr. Speaker, I know you can't speak for yourself because of following the conventions of Westminster. So I ask you to give me permission to be an honorary representative of your constituency when I'm on my feet. And in begging you so, sir, I hope that I can do it in producing something, some form of quality, but also be able to speak widely and with a sense of balance about both constituencies. Now, St. Michael's East. Some time ago, I was given the impression that there was this administrative inhibition, and technical too, that no houses can be built in the Zone 1 area. The Zone 1 pocket has seen some developments and some potential developments since the 2018 election. Now, the Honourable Prime Minister would have been fully aware that I was represented that constituency prior to the 2018 election, where the prisoners who then lived at Dodds used to use the land on the northern side for the purpose of producing vegetables, and even cows and different animals used to be on that area of the land as a form of recreation and helping the inmates to do something wholesome in terms of production and hopefully an element of recreation as well. I know that also human beings, especially through Waterford, they will find that area, especially people who have cars during the course, they will find some little pocket in Waterford for recreational purposes. Now, I really believe that the land could be used for more than that. And I think the Honourable Prime Minister also thought that the lands can be used for more than that. So apart from the botanical gardens developing on the western side of the Bell and to the north of the area that we now call Zone A, there is a new proposal for the construction of the, I think it's a senior citizens, I don't know if it's a village or if it's a modern replacement for the geriatric hospital on that site. Now, I would assume that urine and all different types of things that would have been some of the concerns then. When we said that we could not build houses on it, we were talking about the challenges to the water table. And, but as long as human beings living there, especially if it's a big institution, the same problems now will reoccur. So I am assuming that at the central point of power, sometimes we can use, at one period in history, lands would be used for one thing, but then the change of use of the land can be used for alternatives or other things other than a botanical gardens or even a geriatric hospital. I feel that the people who live on the Bell and sacrifice their lives for so much development throughout Barbados, the people who live at Drax Hall as well in St. Jordan, you have heard me on this wide exposition and excursion on the issue of the ownership of Drax Hall Plantation, on the ownership of the Bell Plantation. I cannot understand how you can talk about the change of use of lands. With all my sympathy for the geriatric hospital and the patients there, and don't think about the people, the sweat and the blood and tears of the children of the families who were on both of those plantations. So I'm making a simple call. I'm making a simple call for the same way we can acquire parcel of the Bell and get to Draxhall too. I'm ministering again to Draxhall because you are responsible for the parcels. In fact, Draxhall was about 760 acres of land at one time, and I believe it is the same, because we have not heard anything about any subdivision. Drax family was owning that land from the first half of the 17th century, and still own the land. I am trying to raise my voice and begging my colleagues to raise their voice about this form of injustice when people in St. George need some assistance in resolving the housing problem, especially ordinary working class people who are descendants of the people who work on the same Draxhall plantation and the Bell plantation as well. I believe that our responsibility in relation of some form of reparations, and in this case what we call self-reparation, some form of social justice, when we change these lands from plantation fields, then we should take into consideration people who live and work all around. Because you see, when people argue about what has happened on the Bell and Liquid Village and into Waterford and everything, a large percentage of those people are children of people who were in the Bell. And you let the Lassalles hold on to that land. Nobody wants to talk about them. Exploit, abuse, and murder our people. Dehumanize them. And now the children of the people who were on those lands got to look to see if they could get a house spot somewhere in St. Joseph or in St. Lucie, but they can't get a house spot anywhere near the Bell. But how you can change the use of the land to build a geriatric hospital? I know people will distort the argument. And you can't change the use of the land also to accommodate these people even on the borders. That is enough land, both sides. 240 acres on the left side, and then the additional section going right back up to the Bussa roundabout. All of that is land. Some people occupy the lands coming down from, not Bussa, Norman Nice roundabout. Some people already got houses on the borders, so why can't put houses now on the borders of the Bell? We're trying to go after a target of 10,000 houses. All I'm asking the powers that be, and the most powerful among us, is that the same way you can accommodate a geriatric hospital on the border that carries that kind of symbolic representation of your presence in Parliament, I want the same kind of representation, not even for symbolic reasons, on the basis of a strong philanthropic basis of having housing for the poor on the entire borders of the Bell, where the Bell plantation, people using the Bell plantation is not no sugar industry, but other industries and retail outlets with toilet facilities are functioning in the Bell. I've seen an increase in the numbers in the schools that exist within that same table. So I don't understand why you cannot facilitate a discussion around providing houses around that wide open space, that wide savanna of vacant land between the waterfords, because we have lots of land between waterfords coming right back up to the Normanized roundabout. I appreciate plants around the borders for aesthetical reasons, for environmental reasons, but I think that one of the major issues that we face in Barbados is housing. Now, that broad generalization of housing is something that I need clarity on. I hear about 10,000 houses, but 10,000 houses for who? Who are the people that are going to be entitled? You see how I call these things? Who are the people going to get these 10,000 people? You know, like you got a club there in Bay Street that anybody's supposed to join in, the black people can't get in it, you know. And they want to invite people up there to teach them how to swim and that kind of thing. I want ordinary people to get in there as membership, especially no white people, Indian people, or black people can't put nothing over my eyes. You open up the yacht club, for me and for my colleagues from the city and some people from down in Cap Scotland and Farnham's Land and Marshall Gap and the Orleans and Greenfield. Open up the membership. Man, you could get it any time, man. You belong to our core, right? I'm serious. So we're going to use the resources of Barbados, and we are going to talk about integrating a society. And we're going to try to address some, what I call administrative imbalances. And sometimes there's space in Barbados that other people will buy at $1 million a square foot. Not because they want to buy expensive land, you know, but they want the areas exclusively for a certain type of people in Barbados. So I want to hear clearly, if the Minister of Housing knows, exactly who these 10,000 houses for. Well, I remember the grotto. We were told that the grotto was for low-income people. They shut that after the place was completed. They had it closed for about nearly 2 years. And when it was opened up to people who had tenants, the discussion was about, is these houses going to be rent-to-own? Are these houses going to be for sale? What is going to be the value of the units? I need to hear these things. I need to hear these things because I heard about 12 or 16 houses in an area where you have about 19,000 people living. Half of them got the housing and they got the land. And some people want stupid me to believe that you're being kind to me by giving me 12 units for people who live about here from the 17th century, never had land, never had houses yet, running up and down the road every day, being called squatters, and lots of people who don't like to pay rent and all these kind of things. I hear it. Unfortunately, I haven't been hearing it much by this post-2018 group, but I've heard these discussions going on in here, and they look for the most pejorative terms in order to describe their own people. People can't get work as a realist, and we are back to the stage that we were in the 1930s, 20s, and 30s. These are realities. Not saying that the government has caused it, but we are back to challenges of poverty, abject poverty too. We are back to that stage. We are back to the stage where more working class people and they call working class, not workers, working class people are now experiencing not just suffering, but are homeless, leading to all different types of social abuse. So you have to tell me what is the rationale for the construction of 10,000 houses, and tell me who these 10,000 houses will be for, and then when you then tell me that, I want to know what is the required qualifications for the 26,000 people at the National Housing Corporation who half of them don't work, that apply for housing, and half of them are low-income people. And when the houses get allocated, I want to make sure that some of these people get it. So do we have a modern scientific approach to how do you have people at the lowest end of the society having an opportunity now to have housing? What kind of arrangements is being made with the credit union? What kind of arrangement is being made with the banking institutions that could give me the assurance? I mean, these are deep thoughts that I believe at the level of national policy, even if parliamentarians don't ask the questions, journalists and social commentators should be answering fundamental questions. For my entire lifetime and prior to my lifetime, this was a debate. And I just came from down Broad Street, and men were telling me, when they passed by the taxi men, and you can go down there, the taxi men stopped me and tell me they applied for houses 20 years ago. Went back to housing because houses asked you to come back almost every day. They asked you some stupid policy of that housing, where you got to be going there all the time because you got to show that you're still alive. So you go out there every day and say, "I here." And then the boy tells me, "We ain't ready for you yet." The man was doing that for 20 years, and I believe he is a classical example of a large percentage of working class people. These things are not right. These things are not right. So when you come out with glorious ideas about 10,000 houses, I'm not saying that the minister is not capable of building 10,000 houses, but you got to get access to the purse that allow you to build 10,000 houses. And I'm not talking about just building 10,000 houses. I am concerned about the partnerships that exist in the construction of the 10,000 houses. How many houses you would say the NHC has a level of autonomy? You can't have it absolutely, but you must have some level of autonomy, administrative autonomy for the construction of NHC houses, especially if you're going to respond to the demands of the working class people. Because when these other partners are given contracts and agreements to construct houses, when the houses are completed, they're out of the very reach of the rationale that NHC gives for the provision of the 10,000 houses. God, even if not clearly expressed, it is applied that you're going to be representing the needs of the ordinary people, and when the housing done, just like the grotto. And when you have single units, you're going to hear discussions here about $300,000 for this unit, $200,000 for this unit. You might got a unit. You might got a unit now for, well, that is something that we have to address it in a different way. But you got a unit for 120 or 100, but you gotta be giving them houses to people who don't work. You have to be giving houses to people who don't work. I am not supporting any policy that gives me 12 houses and tell me that I got to give away 4. You can't get 4 out of 12. You should not be getting 4 out of 16. They average my average members of the population inside St. Michael's East is 19,000, about 8,000 voters. I don't know, but I win. I can't tell if the boys will vote for me. I know that some did not vote for me, and I know the reasons why they didn't vote for me too. I understand that. And then you will join with the rest to try to say we could toss me out of here. But that ain't gonna happen though. I send the message and everybody can understand the message. Well, whatever strategy with the working plan, with the planning, at the end of the day, I go ahead too. And as long as I remain lucid, well, if you do me wrong, trust me, you will get wrong due to you too. Straight business, right? The housing program, I am not off track. I don't be off track. My head is a feeble, or I reach that level. Now where you seeing fading lucidity, you're not seeing that. And you wouldn't see that later. Probably many of you will go before me. And only this year I put down a lot of good people. Right? But, yeah, sir. He has a message for you. But, sir, that'll put me off track. Don't put me off track. That won't put me off. He's speaking about a friend of mine who was very close to me on the left, who sometimes do some things that other people would describe as being devious. Sir, no, I'm serious. I've been hearing, let me call it, during some unconscious moments, even prior to the consumption of the food downstairs, right? I've been hearing people saying, but you know, you got to share these houses. If you hear this statement, you would assume that I get it like 90 houses, like they say Lucy, or in Christchurch. You would believe that I got these big housing areas, and now the minister of housing is about to build a whole set of houses across St. Michael's East. And after that, I can't sleep because everybody coming here building new houses. You don't know that there are talking about 12 houses in my constituency. Like the last day, they built about 6 by the top of St. Barnabas. And then there's housing development in St. Michael's East. And these marketing things, that's for CNN and all them agencies, so, right? You can't tell people across my community that you're building houses in St. Michael's East, and then everybody become charged. And then the parliamentary representative go run and hide up on a rock. Because in one evening alone, I can easily find, if not I'm here, or if I'm not in the office in Bay Street or Robin Street, I can find people waiting at my house to get these houses, which you all inflate it, talk about it in such a manner that everybody will believe that I got a house in that estate that occupies probably about 17 acres of land. Well, I found with the Drax family, or the family to the Lasses family. The royal family and the Lasses family built a house in the Bell. And now the Bell is renting out land to other people who all the natural functions of a household go on in the Bell on a daily basis in the businesses. If it is nitrates, the scientist medic, you will speak today. If it is nitrates or phosphorus or whatever that goes into the water table, you don't do it at night. So the workers that working up there during the course of the day discharge the same things in the water. So you can use the land space for increased numbers in schools, increased numbers in other institutions in the community, but I can't get it to put houses along the Bell, sir, and make greater use of Waterfords. That is that we're not calling for it, we are calling for it. And the state is responding in a very sluggish way to what is happening. And we've got to be struggling all the time with town planning officers coming up there and hardly speaking. And then they got to be judge, jury, police officer, everything across my constituency, trying to get people to settle down. People selling government land and all kinds of things, renting it out, all kinds of things going on up there. And as I said to you recently, for all the years that some people was living on the land, new discoveries on natural gas lines dropped. Natural gas lines 6 feet below the ground. And houses all along the natural gas lines. No serious policy decisions being made. And then people, oh, look at a serious policy decision being made, and there's as old as Nebuchadnezzar, and houses that on top these 6 feet lines buried in the ground. What policy are you talking about? No department never had any records to say these are really main gas lines that travel from St. Andrew straight up to Civil Airport. This is where the lines go. And after people construct board and wall and dig pits, you gotta hope that they don't dig pits and put some explosive below the 6 feet of the gas lines. You mean no kind of serious thought is being applied to development? We have to hear answers about these things. So a housing policy must be extensive, sir, and comprehensive. So when I hear about these houses being built, I am not going to be silent if I don't believe it's up to other MPs. Not housing and work, and people getting food. If food being shared, I got to get some. If housing, the state is giving out housing, I have to get some for the poor. The rest of people buy houses for themselves. So I want to hear no middle class people must have housing, and because they had a stupid policy here before about we cannot this government, about we will build middle class housing, and as a consequence of the sale of the middle class housing, the profits that derive from it will be invested in work. That is foolishness. Not even God can tell me that. It doesn't make sense. So we need to spend some time either in here or elsewhere talking about housing policy. Don't come to me as though I am, you see this thing about these 14, 15, 16, or whatever houses they gave me? Do not come to me and tell me that I asked the leader of the then opposition of Barbados, David Thompson, sitting there, they over there, for that land which they bought from his family. And then when they get the land, you tell me any officer or any minister, can they allocate the houses and don't give me a fair share? A fair share is not even 3/4 for me. When we were building houses under the Onafa administration, Onafa tell me 75% of the houses constructing in any community is to go to the parliamentary representative. And I'm now being told by my brother from St. James, North, and he tried to disrupt my family home. Sir, when you are in another place at another time, sir, I'll be able to tell you about that. But seriously, you can't do that to me. You can't do that to me. You can't even just come and say 90%. Depends on the circumstances. It depends on the circumstances. I believe that each area that we construct housing in need for a careful assessment of what it is that we are trying to address, right? And then we construct the houses. And when the houses finish, we show that we attain the results that we set about to attain. But you can't just be building houses and saying 40 for you, 2 for you, things like that, and concentrating on the specific area. Huh? I get it 500? Man, anytime you do that, man, you're the greatest man on the earth. But you know, you can't, I know even, sir, I know the honorable member from St. George.
I remember you got 2 more minutes.
Okay, who is responsible for housing? I know that if you could give me 10,000, that you would say, my brother, you are worthy of all that you asked for. But I'm not too sure that everybody would agree with him on that. And then he is not a law unto himself. He also has to, there's also a bigger order. There's a bigger, you know, fellas just in the order. The order said you can only do what persons direct you to do. It's not even a policy decision that is made on consensus. It's a policy decision that is made on the word that comes to mind I would not say. But sir, I really appreciate the opportunity to address this matter, just to give a few perspectives of how I feel, right? And I want to thank the honorable member. Where's St. George? You're in South. So St. George. Because I know St. George South had a rough time before. My friend, then MP Louis Tell, would always cry out to me about what I was doing and saying at Charroa Bridge, a representation of the honorable member then for St. George North. And he told me that while he was suffering in the South, my friend as well from St. George North was enjoying the benefits of creating an urban pocket within rural Barbados. And he was building up in Market Hill. he carried up a court, carried up a police station. He had a market, a commercial market. He built a chafet, all these things. They urbanized the whole pocket. So this is an hour of redress for the honorable member for St. George South. And I don't believe anybody would fault him if he tried to make sure he correct that imbalance that occurred then in the Right, but sir, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the opportunity to just babble a few songs. And I hope that with all the spice and humor, which comes naturally sometimes, I hope that everybody would take the suggestions in the manner in which I have actually offered them to the Honourable House and to you, sir, as Speaker of the House Assembly. And certainly I would continue to also represent your constituency since you are gagged by a convention, which I believe that we need to address as well. Thank you very much.
Honourable Leader, Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the postponement of this further consideration of the resolution.
Postpone Friday.
The question is that this resolution be postponed for further consideration. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, we revert to statements by ministers.
Honourable member for Christchurch, East Central.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the increase in prices which Barbadians have been experiencing, particularly over the past few months, are not unique to Barbados. Inflation is on the rise globally, affecting all economies irrespective of size, and level of development, whether developed economies, economies in transition, or developing economies. Global prices rose in 2021 and into 2022 for various reasons. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, major economies like the United States and the Eurozone have pursued supernormal expansionary macroeconomic policies in an effort to stimulate their economies. This contributed to a surge in demand, including for energy, especially after these economies began to ease COVID-19 restrictions. However, supply has not yet been able to match demand. In particular, there were more unexpected gas production outages during this period. The supply constraints were exacerbated by the underinvestment in fossil fuel production over the past few years, due in part to the global push for greener sources of power. The significant fallout from COVID-19 has also brought logistics and supply chain pressures, such as port congestion and freight capacity constraints. These pressures continue to impact all industries globally, some more than others. In addition to these factors, several major advanced economies face labor tightness, which have driven up labor costs and in turn passed through to inflation. These combined factors have led to a rise in global inflation in the major economies in 2021. At the beginning of 2022, there were some hopes that global inflationary pressures would ease over the course of the year as the supply situation improved. However, the war in Ukraine has and the resulting sanctions have now dashed those hopes for a quick end to rising inflation from the COVID-19 related supply bottlenecks seen across the global economy during 2021 and at the outset of 2022. With the war in Ukraine, global inflation has persisted and is clearly impacting global food supplies, resulting in higher food prices. It has also led to a surge in prices across a wide range of energy-related commodities. These higher energy prices have lowered real incomes, raised production costs, tightened financial conditions, and constrained macroeconomic policy, especially in energy-importing countries such as Barbados. In short, the war has contributed to a further spike in global inflation. Inflation in Germany and the United States has already risen to nearly 8%, the highest in 40 years. War-induced commodity price increases and broadening price pressures have led to 2022 inflation projections by the International Monetary Fund of 5.7% in advanced economies and 8.7% in emerging market and developing economies, 1.8 and 2.8 percentage points higher than projected last January. Multilateral efforts to respond to the humanitarian crisis, prevent further economic fragmentation, maintain global liquidity, manage debt stress, tackle climate change, and the end of the pandemic are essential. The pace of consumer price increases is expected to slow to 2.5% and 6.5% respectively in emerging and developing nations in 2023. Besides the war, other factors have contributed to rising prices. In the case of Barbados, a vulnerable middle-income, small island developing state, the longer-term global warming and increased adverse weather events affect agricultural productivity and reduce fruit production, putting upward pressure on prices as well as testing our level of national food security. This position faced by Barbados is not dissimilar to that faced by many Latin American and Caribbean states. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, just as the Russian invasion of Ukraine has stoked the inflation fire, most Latin American and Caribbean countries have been experiencing symptoms of rising food and energy prices since last year. According to the World Bank, in April 2022, inflation in other goods and services, such as those related to gas prices, also hit consumers everywhere. Such price hikes also contribute to large welfare losses through higher transport costs. Even worse, people in Latin America and the Caribbean are seeing food and fuel prices skyrocket, while wages on average remain below pre-pandemic levels. Mr. Speaker, this is why some economists have drawn analogies between the current situation and what happened in the 1970s. At that time, there was also excess demand as the US had pursued expansionary policies to push for economic and employment growth. When the oil crisis hit in 1973, the effect was immediate and dire. Oil prices shot up and inflation rose sharply. It took the US Federal Reserve many years to bring inflation under control, and this was eventually achieved only at great cost to the economy. Inflation has increased globally, but varies by country. Inflation is particularly high in economies where buoyant demand, tighter labor markets, and greater wage increases are amplifying the food and energy price shock. Governments across the globe have stepped in with a range of measures to keep energy and food prices down or to support households and firms. Inflation has also complicated policymaking as major central banks are raising interest rates to contain prices, but that increases borrowing costs for emerging markets and developing nations, which have already faced high debt burdens. On June 13, 2022, the managing director of the IMF stated that fighting the price surge is critical, despite the recession risk. Hence, acting now will hurt less than acting later. Mr. Speaker, in our case, Barbados faced increased uncertainty, first commenced with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has been further escalated by the war in Ukraine. As a consequence, many Barbadian households are facing unprecedented circumstances over which we have little or no control. Barbados certainly did not contribute in any way to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, but we are feeling the effects. Barbados did not create the factors that have spurred the global warming, but we are facing the climate crisis, and we definitely are feeling the effects of that. Barbados does not produce or consume enough oil or gas or other energy products to influence their supply or the demand, but we suffer the effects of price instability that we can hardly bear. Mr. Speaker, over the last year, our government has been engaged in extensive discussions within the social partnership across a variety of critical areas with the objective of easing the pressure. On Friday, July 9th, 2022, the social partnership met again for a further review of these issues. We also met with the pig farmers, the poultry farmers, the vegetable farmers, retailers, the distributors, and supermarket owners. Mr. Speaker, there is no knight in shining armor coming to rescue Barbados. We understand that our survival rests solely within our own hands, and that if we are going to feed ourselves through this crisis and beyond, we have to create the environment to support our farmers. Our Prime Minister has led from the front, and almost every week this year literally conversed with Barbadians about the need for us to ensure that we achieve food security. We have also spent a significant amount of time with our partners in the region, as well as particularly Suriname and Guyana, trying to ensure that we can boost production during the course of this year. Mr. Speaker, I now seek to address issues related to energy. Between January and May of this year, Barbados spent over $500 million importing fuels into this country. To be precise, sir, $552.3 million. More than double that of 2021, when $213.7 million was spent. Let me repeat, sir. Between January and May of 2022, Barbados spent over $500 million importing fuels into this country. To be precise, $552.3 million, more than double the amount in 2021, when $213.7 million was spent. Compared to the last normal year, sir, in 2019, during the same period, Barbados imported fuel worth $310.8 million. This represents almost 80% higher level of import due solely to the increase in prices. During the budget presentation in March this year, the government introduced a cap on the revenue collected through VAT with respect to fuel at the pump at the price of US $80 per barrel until September 30th, 2022. We indicated at the time that the cap for the purposes of value-added tax collection would provide relief to Barbadian consumers against what we saw then as the potential rise in fuel prices, given the uncertainty prevailing at the time. Following this announcement, the world has witnessed the price of oil soar to over US $125 per barrel, and with the cost of acquisition changing so dramatically, Barbadians have seen a significant increase in the prices of gasoline and diesel as a result. Mr. Speaker, the rise in fuel costs has also impacted the cost of electricity, as the fuel clause adjustment is directly related to oil prices. According to the data provided by the Barbados Light and Power, 63% of all Barbadians of households in Barbados currently use 250 kilowatt hours of electricity or less. To provide some relief, the government now proposes, sir, that effective August 1st, 2022 until January 31st, 2023, the first 250 kilowatt hours of usage be subject to value-added tax of 7.5%. This will represent savings of about $17.40 per month to every Barbadian household using 250 kilowatts, since the current bill will move from approximately $204.46 down to $187.06. This measure will cost the government of Barbados an estimated $1,527,000 per month and will total approximately $9.2 million running from the 1st of August to the 31st of January 2023. In March of 2022, the Honourable Member for St. Michael North East also announced an excise tax and VAT holiday on battery electric vehicles for 2 years, starting April 1st, 2022. Since that announcement, Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Finance has received numerous inquiries regarding the similar treatment for hybrid vehicles. At the time, we indicated to the country that we're in the process of regularizing a few anomalies in the tariff structure in relation to hybrid vehicles. I'm now in a position to announce that effective August 1st, 2022, the import duty applicable to plug-in hybrids will be set at 25%, whilst the rate of import duty for a regular hybrid vehicle will be 35%, both down from the current tariff of 45% applicable to vehicles fueled by gasoline and diesel. This makes the policy more consistent with the 2030 goal, sir, of being fossil fuel free. Mr. Speaker, we would rather have spent that extra money on building more renewable energy capacity and advancing the electrification of both the passenger and commercial fleet in the country. Therefore, it would be counterintuitive to incentivize consumption of diesel and gasoline hybrid vehicles that still require significant usage of fossil fuel in the same way we did for battery electric vehicles. Therefore, for the avoidance of doubt, Mr. Speaker, there is no excise tax or VAT holiday for hybrids. What is proposed, however, is that the excise tax on plug-in hybrid electric hybrid vehicles over 2,000 cc's be reduced from 120% to 80% effective August 1st, 2022. As it relates to public procurement, Mr. Speaker, entities falling under the government of Barbados will be required to update their internal vehicular and equipment policy to purchase battery electric vehicles, plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, or alternative fuel vehicles as it relates to passenger vehicles as priority purchases. Given the new availability of electric heavy-duty vehicles and heavy-duty equipment, that effective August 1st, all central government agencies and departments, as well as state-owned enterprises, will be required to commence greening their heavy-duty vehicular and equipment fleet with any available electric models within the range as part of their routine procurement. Mr. Speaker, I now focus on the household cost of living. At present, we have a wide basket of goods that Barbadians have become accustomed to, for which VAT has been removed for a long time. The government recognizes that we need to add a few more items to that basket of goods. In this regard, I propose to add to the list of items for which VAT will be removed from July 21st, 2022 until January 31st, 2023. These items are hot chocolate, cornflakes, cream of wheat, sliced ham, unflavored black tea, honey, peanut butter, and apples. Mr. Speaker, we have gone even further, and we are now seeking to remove the import duties on citrus, conscious that this effort will help Barbadians build their immune system and continue to help us in the fight against COVID-19, which regrettably is still very much with us. Consequently, our government will remove the import duty on fresh oranges, fresh grapefruits, fresh lemons, and fresh limes to ensure that we can boost all Barbadians' immune system by reducing the custom duties on those limited items from January 21st, 2022 until January 31st, 2023. Mr. Speaker, over the last 32 years, our country has benefited from the formation of the social partnership, which has seen us through some difficult times. Over the last year, we have engaged on matters first related to supply and logistics, and then issues related to cost of living. We have had strong engagement over the past few weeks, where we recognize that the voluntary compact of how we treat each other is critical to who we are as Barbadians. Last Saturday morning, the government and some members of the business community signed a compact on the prices of specific items, which was witnessed by representatives of the labor movement. These following additional relief measures will be implemented from July 21st, 2022, and run until January 31st, 2023. Under the compact, supermarkets, wholesalers, distributors, and farmers have all reviewed their markups. For the items under review, it was agreed that, for the most part, that their markups will be no higher than between 12 to 15% to ensure that every Barbadian household, but in particular the vulnerable, can benefit from these items. Very briefly, sir, these items include whole chicken, chopped mixed chicken, stewed chicken, and chicken backs, pork hind legs and hind leg chops, in particular stewed pork, knuckles, and hocks. In addition, we have included breakfast oats, sliced ham, Milo, drinking chocolate. We've also included eggs, evaporated milk, baby food milk, 2% milk, New Zealand cheddar cheese, soya bean or sunflower cooking oil, rice, long macaroni, Eclipse biscuits, and soda bits, singles or multi-pack biscuits. Also on the list of items are salt bread for all of the bakeries, white sandwich bread, and whole wheat bread, oranges, apples, sardines, tuna, whether in oil or water, corned beef, split peas, pigeon peas, tin and fresh black-eyed peas, flour, and margarine. Naturally, sir, it isn't only food that keeps a family afloat. People need personal hygiene matters to be addressed. We've included toilet soap, toilet paper, sanitary napkins, baby diapers, single toothbrushes, toothpaste, roll-on, deodorant, and bleach to clean. Mr. Speaker, as a result of the signing of the compact on Saturday, I am pleased to report to you that the full list of the items and their prices are quoted in Appendix 2 to this statement. Mr. Speaker, with respect to animal feed and the circumstances as it relates to our farmers, we've already had a commitment from the parent company of Pinnacle Feeds and Roberts Manufacturing that they will not further increase the animal feed prices for the next 6 months unless there's some extraordinary event way beyond all of our control. Similarly, the Honourable Member for St. James Central, the Minister of Energy and Business Development, has also received a commitment from the flour mill that they will continue to hold prices to suppliers for the next 6 months because they too are also facing, as you know, international commodity prices. Mr. Speaker, over the course of the next few months, the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs has been reminded of his duty to continue monitoring prices and the requirement to publish twice a month to ensure that we are in a position to make sure that these commitments which are being given are real. The Prime Minister has also insisted that this report comes to Cabinet so we may keep an oversight on these matters as well. Mr. Speaker, you would notice that vegetables have not been included here, as the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Nutrition Security is working with Barbadian producers, as well as the Ministry of Agriculture in Guyana and Suriname, to see how we can continue to reduce the price of vegetables, particularly in the markets. May I take this opportunity to remind you that our government has invested heavily in a Farmers Enfranchisement and Empowerment Drive, the FEED program, to ensure that more Barbadians are getting into the business of farming and increasing food security. Mr. Speaker, to further augment national food security, our government is pleased to report that the Lears Land Lease project is now getting off the ground, and indeed the Browns River catchment has started, with Haggats and Bawdens being completed soon. With respect to the issue of Project CARE, the Community Agriculture Response and Empowerment Program, Cabinet approved the program piloted by the member for St. Philip South. This project provides opportunities for communities to plant and grow their own food. The BA DMC, as well as the BAMC, will provide support with land clearing, cultivation, and planting material. Indeed, a toolkit with a shovel, hoe, fork, hose, spray can, and seedlings will also be included. And the project has already attracted the support of private sector members in order to assist the BADMC, with Gale hatcheries having already come on board to work with the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Nutrition Security to ensure that we can also provide baby chicks to participants. These initiatives to augment food supply will lead to enhanced food security and price stability in the medium to long term. The thrust of the program of Project CARE is also to provide fellowship for the elderly and younger people, to provide revenue for young people willing to put in the work, and to bring communities together. It is also an avenue to ensure that those living below the poverty line are not left out and that they can better cope with respect to food costs. With respect to the provision of fish, the government of Barbados invested substantially within the last year to introduce fish aggregating devices, FADs, which allow fishermen to navigate and travel over a shorter distance. This results in their having to spend less money on fuel because the fish swarm around the FAD. The risk, of course, is that we should not be catching the fish that are too small, as has been happening in some instances, regrettably, if we are to maintain the sustainability of our fishing stock. Mr. Speaker, in recent times, we've seen an increase in fish prices in this country that is very high. Supermarkets have reported these prices, for example, of dolphin having gone from $10 per kilogram to $16 per kilogram. Therefore, we need to better understand what is driving this level of increase in the fishing industry, and to see how best we can work together with the stakeholders to ensure Barbadians can still have access to affordable fish. The Prime Minister has already asked the relevant ministries to start the conversation with the fishermen so that we may better understand what are the issues and how we can keep the price of this vital protein affordable to Barbadians. Mr. Speaker, we live in a small political economy, and no matter what challenges we face as a country, our government must always act decisively. I'm always prepared to stand corrected, but this government's record has been nothing but decisive. Yet for some, particularly those not currently with a presence in this honourable House, no matter what we do, it never seems to be enough. So permit me, sir, to recap for those who came in late, because I want right-thinking Barbadians to reflect on these things and try to imagine how the cost of living today would be without them being put in place. Since coming to office in 2018, this government has, one, increased non-contributory old age pension from $155 per week to $225 per week for pensioners. Two, increase public servant salaries by 5%. Three, increase the reverse tax credit from $650 to $1,300 and expanded the eligibility criteria from those earning under $18,000 to those earning under $25,000. Four, introduce the compensatory income credit for those persons earning between $25,000 and $35,000, such that they receive all of the income taxes paid as a credit. Reduction of personal income tax rates from 40% to 28.5% in the top bracket, and from effectively 16% to 12.5% in the lower bracket. In spite of the circumstances, particularly with COVID-19, all these measures increase disposable income for thousands of Barbadian families. This has nothing to do with the 49 electric buses contributing to the substantial savings to the Transport Board, and the sanitation truck refleeting and equipment purchased for the Ministry of Transport and Works to do the roads that were untouched for a majority of a decade. If that was not enough, sir, we also put to rest the CLECO debacle in 2019, but in so doing, we also prepaid up to $30,000 in the first instance in November of 2019, and then up to the next $20,000 in March of 2020 on the insurance policies of those pensioners who didn't see a red cent for over 10 years. We didn't know it then, sir, but the timely disbursement of those monies assisted thousands of families, particularly with the onset of COVID-19. If that was not enough, sir, when COVID-19 hit, we immediately responded to increase existing welfare benefits by 40% and started the Adopt a Family program, voting $20 million, which provided $600 per month to the most vulnerable households to assist in mitigating the economic fallout. This government, sir, introduced a new business interruption benefit for self-employed persons who were compliant with their national insurance contributions. We hired additional nurses from Ghana and Cuba to help manage the pandemic, along with persons to augment the contact tracing capacity within the Ministry of Health and Wellness. If that was not enough, sir, the government provided the National Insurance Scheme with much needed cash by liquidating bonds within their portfolio in order to ensure that those 32,000 plus persons who became suddenly unemployed due to COVID-19 received their unemployment benefits without delay. We also allocated, sir, $300 million to the Barbados Employment and Sustainability Program over a 2-year period in order to stave off the specter of bankruptcy and insolvency for scores of firms within the accommodation, restaurant, and attraction sector, bearing in mind that had these businesses gone under, we simply would not have had the capacity to restart the tourism sector once travel resumed. If that was not enough, sir, the government provided business relief for hundreds of vendors at $250 per week and shops at $750 per week affected by the lockdown in January 2021, which was administered by the then Ministry of Energy, Small Business and Entrepreneurship. The government then introduced a national minimum wage in April of 2021 of $8.50 per hour, up from the $6.25 paid only to shop assistants at the time. In response to the ashfall from the eruption of the La Soufrière volcano in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we hired persons temporarily from across every community in Barbados to assist with the cleanup effort. If that was not enough, sir, the passage of Hurricane Elsa in July 2021 caused significant damage to over 2,000 homes in Barbados, the cost of which the government of Barbados is still carrying today, with some $70 million estimated to complete the rebuilding process this year. May I remind this Honourable House that 90% of those persons affected are below the poverty line, and 90% of the properties were uninsured. As I indicated earlier, sir, in March of 2022, our government placed a cap on the VAT collected on fuel at US $80 per barrel, provided significant ease to Barbadians in spite of the increases in costs globally. We also put a cap on the freight costs at December 2019 levels for the purposes of calculating duty, sir, at the port. So with all this in mind, sir, schools are now on summer vacation. And given the prevailing circumstances, we all know that some parents are already going through a tough time. While many are working, those of you who are not working and have to take care and ensure that the children are well fed. We all know too well, sir, what children can be like when they run around in the hot sun and really are in need of sustenance. I'm happy to announce, sir, that last Thursday, Cabinet approved a proposal by the Honourable Member for St. Philip West, the Minister of Education, Technological and Vocational Training, for the School Meals Department to execute the Summer Nutrition Program, which will ensure that every child of school age in this country will be given an opportunity between July 25th, 2022 and September 2nd, 2022 to benefit from the provision of the school meals service. The Ministry of Finance will provide $2.5 million to finance this summer nutrition program, which will play a critical role in easing the burden for families during this difficult period. At this juncture, sir, let me join the Honourable Prime Minister in thanking the Honourable Member for St. James Central, the Senior Minister coordinating productive sectors, and the Minister of Energy and Business Development, who, along with the Member for St. Peter, the Minister of Labour and Social Partnership Relations and the Third Sector, who worked on these cost living matters over the last few weeks, together with Ambassador Dr. Clyde Maskell and the government's Senior Economic Advisor, Dr. Kevin Greenidge, to ensure that we had this level of engagement. I also take this opportunity to acknowledge the work of the public sector officials who contributed significantly to this initiative. I want to commend, sir, the leadership of the private sector, and in particular, those within the supermarket, within the wholesale, retail, and distributive sector, and for those, for example, within the farming community, the poultry community, the pig farmers, for coming forward in this exercise of national solidarity when everyone is under pressure. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Honourable Prime Minister in bringing together the relevant players and asking everyone to put something on the table as we as a country navigate our way through these rough seas. We all agree that in this country, we are always best when each of us works to put something on the table voluntarily. Indeed, in these times of grave global uncertainty, each of us will be required to play a part. This is the Beijing way. Mr. Speaker, this is who we are. Together, we shall overcome. May God continue to bless this nation. I'm obliged to you, sir.
Speaker, we revert to order number 9.
Honourable Member for St. James North.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I don't plan to spend the whole half hour allocated on this, but wish to intervene on this issue. Housing, of course, and my colleague and friend, Honourable Member for St. Michael East spoke, as he always does, with tremendous passion and on the issue. But I think we all accept that housing is one of the 3 most pressing issues and challenges for our people, not now, but for a long time. Housing, I think most of us would put in there in terms of the 3, unemployment, and closely aligned to that, of course, intergenerational poverty, and our responsibility to try and move as many people out of poverty as possible. Of course, look, all 3 of these issues have been even more challenging now over the last 2 years with the advent of COVID. And the concept, the covenant, the promise, the mandate delivered in the Barbados Labour Party's manifesto in this year's elections, and of course conceptualized by the Honourable Prime Minister to build 10,000 housing solutions. Not only the government, but Barbados as a whole because government can't build all 10,000, but to facilitate and ensure that there are 10,000 housing solutions in this 5-year term is an extremely noble concept. And of course, the Honourable Member for St. George South has been given the mandate to realize that concept. He, of course, is a very experienced business person, manager, 3-time Member of Parliament, now a minister with seniority, and we expect that he would be able to fulfill that mandate. The issue, though, sir, is that I have some concerns on housing, and you know, all of us, I'm sure as members of Parliament, get calls from constituents. In my case, I would say every other day on houses. I want a house spot. And I'm sure that maybe some of my constituents call other MPs on this, as I am called by other MPs' constituents as well on this issue. And therefore, I would hope that the Honourable Member, Minister of Housing, can use the opportunity which his wrap-up would give him to maybe speak to certain issues which I would raise on housing to the people of Barbados, because I can't provide the answers. So I'm not the Minister of Housing. I don't even sit in cabinet, so I don't know all the time what we're going on at the executive level. But certainly a major issue, sir. Yes, as I said, we have an extremely noble mandate in providing 10,000 housing solutions for the people of Barbados. I believe, sir, that under the previous minister, now senior minister, Member of Parliament for Christchurch West, an assessment was done as to how many people actually have applications in at the National Housing Corporation in contemporary times. Because we all know, sir, that there are people, constituents of ours, who have had applications in that in the Government Housing Agency for 20 plus years and haven't received housing solutions. We used to hear that there were about 30,000 applications, such applications for the people of Barbados. And the reality, sir, don't let's try to fool our constituents, sir. Because I tell people, sir, I may try to fool others or may have done so in the past, sir, but in terms of your public life, I certainly have a philosophy. I don't try to fool any of my constituents. Successive governments have failed the people of Barbados in providing housing, sir. Because, sir, it's almost an impossibility to provide housing for all those who want housing and who can qualify for housing in terms of being able to finance it. So both political parties, which have at various times comprised the government of this country, have been incapable of providing housing solutions for the majority of those persons who want houses. And that's why, sir, I think we all have to support the Honourable Member in his quest. I know, sir, that a lot of pressure is going to be on him to provide these 10,000 housing solutions, but not only him, but to facilitate the provision of them. Because, you know, the time has long gone, sir, where government or where 30 elected people in a parliament can be the problem solver and the solution to every problem of our individual constituents in Barbados. It is impossible. And anyone who says otherwise is trying to fool people, sir, and I won't be one of them. So we have a situation, sir, where We have this noble concept, sir, 10,000 houses, and I believe that Hope Inc. has committed to providing 1/2 of those houses, the 10,000 every year. So there'll be other private sector enterprises that will be involved in building the houses, and government will facilitate that. So I'm not so sure how many the government armed National Housing Corporation will build. And so we saw this work probably best in our, certainly within the last 30 years, under the administration of the Right Honourable Owen Officer, where Barbados Mortgage Finance was there and was able to facilitate the financing of a lot of housing solutions for Barbados, 100% mortgages, we know, and other conditions and concepts which assisted in the provision of housing. But we have a situation today, sir, with all financial institutions, and I know Honourable Senior Minister, Member of Parliament for Christchurch has been very critical on more than one occasion in this Parliament about the financial institutions in this country. Certainly the established ones, the traditional ones, those that are controlled from institutions based in developed countries, OECD countries, and you know we have them here, sir. But when our constituent now, sir, who doesn't have a permanent job, doesn't have an employment contract that shows a level of permanence, sir, goes to a financial institution and says, yeah, I want to buy a house, sir. Everyone in this country is entitled to own a little piece of this rock, as we say. I want to know what facility, because we are the legislative arm of this country, sir. The Cabinet of Barbados is the executive arm, the policy arm. What provision are we doing at policy level to allow an individual who, based on their salary, based on their records, sir, has shown that, yes, they are eligible for one of these houses that we are going to build, whether it's private sector, whether it's Hope, whether it is the government, sir, whether the Chinese houses, the Guyanese houses, sir. How are we going to ensure that the financial institutions of this country, whether the traditional banking sector or the credit unions, will finance an individual who doesn't have a permanent employment contract, who is perhaps only in a temporary position in a government department, perhaps is in an acting position which in government which doesn't have a permanent post, perhaps maybe someone who gained employment at the National Conservation Commission and is now going on in an independent contractual position, sir, which we have to do, sir. That is the truth. I mean, we supported almost 4,000 people for what, over 2 years, sir, and it can't continue all the time, so I fully understand that, sir. Or perhaps even a self-employed person, sir, whose income each month probably fluctuates. And therefore, they're not carrying any employment contract to the financial institution. And my concern, sir, is the ability and capacity for the type of persons, sir, of which there are thousands across Barbados, both in the private sector, in the public sector, and in self-employment, entrepreneurs, sir, which we are trying to create. And I'd like to know what facilities are being made to ensure that the financial institutions will finance these persons to gain houses, sir. Because there are very few people in this Barbados who got $150,000, $200,000 sitting down to buy a house, sir, or to build a house. I certainly don't have it, sir. Every house I bought, sir, I had to go and get a mortgage. And it isn't that I poor, sir. That is the truth, I being fair. So this is what I like to know, sir. The Honourable Prime Minister has tremendous political capital. Because, sir, I would venture to say there aren't that many political leaders, certainly in this part of the world, who could have done what the Honourable Prime Minister did last week and what we just heard from the Minister in the Ministry of Finance, the Honourable Member for Christchurch, East Central, speak about just now, to bring all the business leaders together and tell them, listen to me. We reducing prices in this country. You take in a less of a profit margin, and we doing this. That requires tremendous political capital. And therefore, we have a leader who at this stage, sir, because you don't know what's going to happen 2 years down the line or 3 years down the line, a day is a long time in politics, has tremendous political capital. And I am just seeking information, as I think many people in Barbados are, as to how we're going to leverage now the financial institutions in the type of situation I just spoke about to cease and settle and to finance the provision and acquisition of all of these housing solutions, which we have conceptualized and which we intend to have implemented and to carry out for the betterment of Barbados in a challenging situation. And one of the three major issues confronting Barbadians and confronting us in here as members of Parliament to supply to our people. I would also, sir, like to know as to, because we're talking about housing solutions, sir, actually building houses. But not everyone wants a house. Some people, as you know, sir, you represent an urban constituency, sir, and you probably have more of this than I do, sir, out in St. James North, where people own the house, own the chattel house, but they need land to put the house on it. The landlord may want the land, sir, again, sir. All of us in here know people get notice to quit every day. Up to over the weekend, somebody called me. The landlord wants them off the land. And they need land to put the house. Again, a complex, challenging issue, sir. And you know it not only as a member of Parliament, but you know it too as an experienced attorney at law. The issue of the need for land, provision of land for Barbadians who own chattel houses, sir. And this is a pressing need, sir. We know the history of it. We know the history of it, sir, coming down from slavery, the chattel house, one of the great social pieces of legislation passed in this Parliament in the early 1950s. The Parliament led by Right Excellent Sir Grantley Herbert Adams to no longer have the owners of land be permitted to have the people who rented that land move the chattel house just because they no longer wanted to work on the plantation, sir. We know about that, sir. And this is not similar, but part of that concept. So we also need to provide land spaces, lots for persons who have the house already, chattel house, and wish land alone. And again, sir, we know that under the last Barbados Labour Party administration of the Right Honourable Owen Arthur, a land bank was created, sir. I think, well, at that time, the immediate past Honourable Member for St. Andrew, who is now retired from politics, was the Minister of Housing, and a land bank was created for the benefit of the people of Barbados. But I think that the public of Barbados knows, are we going to create this land bank again? Because nothing was done under the last Democratic Labour Party administration in terms of land, sir. Let's face fact. I'm talking facts. I ain't being critical of them because the public has dealt with them on 2 consecutive occasions, Love 30. The reality is that we need land for people as well who have houses already, chattel houses, to move onto this land. And I would hope that the Honourable Minister would use the opportunity to speak to Barbadians on this issue, because it is something that is before the people of Barbados and what they wish to know about. Tied in with that, sir, and I totally agree, sir. You know my position, sir. Long time, I would have hoped that we could have got together as a Caribbean, as a CARICOM community and region, and advance the cause of technical cooperation and cooperation at all levels, sir. And there can't be many people happier than I am to see the recent linkages and functional and technical cooperation between Guyana and Barbados, sir. Guyana, where my mother was born. And one of those concepts, sir, obviously in agriculture as well, sir. We're doing it, but in terms of housing too. The concept of the Guyanese house, sir, I think is, I believe, to cost $100,000. And we have houses too by the Chinese, sir. But where are these houses going to be located? I think the people of Barbados are asking that question too, because houses need land. So do we have the land for these houses? And I think the people of Barbados would like to know where these houses are going so they could start making a move to try and get some of these houses on some of this land. Compulsory acquisitions of property and quick and reasonable payment for the acquisition of the lands. The Honourable member who just spoke, Minister in the Ministry of Finance, would probably have the figures. I don't know if anyone, I'm sure members of Cabinet, perhaps even the Honourable Minister of Housing would have the figure. But I've said before that the only thing in this Parliament, in the first term I was a member of Parliament, the only thing on this floor that myself, that the then Prime Minister, the Honourable then member for St. Michael South, and I agreed on this floor of Parliament, is that governments, both political parties that comprise this government of Barbados at various times, was delinquent and wrong, sir, in not paying people after they compulsorily acquired the land. 15 years and people still ain't get the money yet, sir. Well, sir, if a government of Barbados because they have the legal right, sir, let's face it, to acquire land for public purposes. So I couldn't do anything. I couldn't tell a government, you can't acquire my land. They have that statutory right. But if a government of Barbados were to acquire land that I had and be so purblind that 5 years gone, 10 years gone, and they won't pay me compensation, sir, well, long time I would have had them in court, sir. I would have get judgment. I would have had to take up some things belonging to the government to sell, to pay out for my land. Well, that is the truth. It is unfair. It is not right. It is a denial of justice to the people of Barbados to acquire the land, which you have the legal right to do, and which we do regularly in this parliament, sir, for public purposes, but then refuse to pay them and say you don't have the money to pay. So I know that when Barbados Labour Party came into office just over 4 years ago, I believe it was about 250 million or 300 million that was owed, because, I mean, they have interest, sir. You don't pay interest accrued, and under the Act, sir, interest accrued at 6% per annum, which is, of course, much, much, much higher than the present banking rate of interest, sir, which is what? 0.001 on every dollar that you have there. So a failure by a government to pay someone who you compulsorily acquire the land causes tremendous financial and economic expense at 6% per annum for each dollar that you don't pay them. So it should be incumbent on a government to pay. Now, this government, like I said, sir, would have found a 250 million, I think it was, debt to people of Barbados for land acquired and not paid for. And government is a continuum, so we can't say, well, you know, that is previous government's fault, that is their business. We acquire this debt and have to take it up. So I'm wondering what facilities are being made, what provision is being made now to reduce this multi-million debt that the government of Barbados, not the Mia Motley administration, sir, the government of Barbados owes the people of Barbados, sir. And I know, sir, of course, that we have committed to pay all of our debts, to pay the income tax arrears, VAT arrears, sir. We've been doing a tremendous job with that. We obviously had debt restructuring, sir. Some people take a cut. We're trying our best, sir. But this is a lot of money, and I think the people of Barbados, especially those who have not yet been paid for property that was compulsorily acquired by the state, would wish to know. We have a situation, sir. The executing arm of housing agency for the people of Barbados, the National Housing Corporation. And we know, sir, all of us in here, sir, on the street, we don't live in a utopia, sir. We know that there are people in this country, and not now, sir, long time, who rent NHC units but own houses somewhere else, sir. And when you're renting a National Housing Corporation unit, you sign an affidavit saying that you don't own land or house, sir. And you swear to that affidavit, you deponed to it, sir. You know, sir, because you work certainly for some people who over the years bought or rented NHC units, sir. And the reality is that National Housing Corporation has never checked. And so I speak to, sir, as a former deputy chairman of National Housing Corporation, 20 years ago, sir, acted as chairman for a while. National Housing don't pursue this, sir, and check to see now XY owns a house somewhere else, so they shouldn't be renting here. Let me get XY notice to create. They got a house already, so that somebody who needs a house can go and rent this house, sir. Because we know this Barbados, sir. We don't know, let's fool ourselves. All of us here know this Barbados. Somebody feel they could make a call and get through, you know? Because, and somebody gonna say, man, we gonna ease you. Because that is who we are too, sir. That is who we are, sir. It's, in most cases, very good, sir, but very good is bad too. So I could only urge National Housing Corporation, sir, to do an assessment on how many people or who the renting housing units to that own houses already, so that space can be made for people who need housing units and who don't own any house, sir. That is the truth. The issue, sir, of persons with disabilities, sir, and of course, it is known that...
The honourable member has 2 more minutes.
Yes, sir. I'm chairing a committee which has been mandated to come up with policy and legislation to submit to the Honourable Minister of People Empowerment within 6 months by the 30th of November. And we had a green paper way back in 2000, which stated as a matter of policy and principle that 10% of state housing, public housing in Barbados should go towards people with disabilities. And of course, we would have met with the Ministry of Housing, because we're meeting with all the ministries to try and get what is their policy, sir. And believe you me, sir, these meetings have been extremely revealing, sir, especially to ministerial officials. I would have an opportunity to speak more about that later on. And I thank the Minister, the Honourable Minister of Housing, sir. He made a large percentage of his staff available to us on that day. That is the truth. And the question, therefore, is what is the policy of the Ministry of Housing towards allocation of state housing, but not only state housing, sir, houses built by private sector, which government is facilitating in terms of reserving some of these for people with disabilities, sir. We heard a statement from the National Housing Corporation that for the last 2 years they have adopted this policy of trying to reserve 5% of housing, 10% for people with disabilities, sir. But we have finally recognized, sir, as a government, as an executive, that people with disabilities who, in fact, make up some of the most vulnerable categories of this country's population, sir, need to have a proper stake in this country. And therefore, sir, I would hope that some of these 10,000 houses, sir, similar percentage of what are people with disabilities in this country are reserved for people with disabilities. And like I said, sir, we accept that government is not building all these 10,000, so government should be able to mandate among those who they are facilitating in the private sector to build houses, that a certain percentage should be reserved for people with disabilities and their families, sir. And finally, sir, in terms of my own constituency, sir, the Honourable Member spoke before me on this resolution. Would have spent a lot of time speaking about allocation of houses, some of these houses for his constituents, sir. Well, I got advocate for allocation for my constituents too, because I at a disadvantage, because my constituency, I think I counted 5, sir. There are only 5 constituencies, sir, 5 or 6, can't remember which one, that does not have National Housing Corporation units, sir. And I don't know whether that is an advantage or disadvantage. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister, sir, I think would tell me, boy, Eddie, boy, you don't have any NHC houses. So I don't know what way it is, so whether that is a challenge or whether it's a benefit. That is the truth. But my constituency, sir, largely a large part of it made up of land right now that is Zone 1, can't build on it, sir. And I long for the day, sir, I pray for the day that the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister will be able to bring into this Parliament the bill to less debate regularizing this Zone 1 situation, sir, that quite frankly harassing my constituents, sir, that up to this weekend, I could still be getting calls, well, look, when are you going to be able to build indoor bathroom facilities in my house, sir? And I don't know what to tell them, sir, that is the truth, as to when they're going to be able to do it, because Zone 1 is one of the peculiar challenges of my constituency. So I in a situation, sir, where I really don't have government land that you could build these houses on, sir, or land that government can allocate to the private sector and say, here, build 500 houses or even 200 houses on this land. And therefore, I, as Member of Parliament, under the concept of the last Barbados Labour Party administration, if that concept still applies now, we can get 90% of these 200 houses, sir. So I had a disadvantage in that case. I mean,
You wind up, Honourable Member?
yes, sir, I'm going to wrap up. Some members might feel that being on an MP for a West Coast constituency is an advantage, but it isn't always. So I am just, of course, in this Parliament, making a plunge, advocating for some of these 10,000 housing solutions, which I have no doubt that the Honourable Member for St. George South, with, as I said, his experience, his business background, his managerial skills, will produce, sir. He has to produce them. He tells me he can do more, he can do better than that. That my fair share, sir, or the fair share of these houses is given to the residents and constituents of St. James North. I'm obliged to you, sir.
Honourable Member for Christchurch, right?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As I join this debate, you know, Mr. Speaker, I guess I could join this debate on several levels. First, I would have to join the debate, first and foremost, as the Member of Parliament for the constituency that this area that is being invested in, Sergeant's Village. And I share that area with the member for Christchurch West Central as well, who lived actually in the area of Sergeant's Village and grew up amongst the people of this particular area. Or I could join the debate not as the Member of Parliament for the area, but as the Minister of Housing who first started this acquisition and was able to get this acquisition piloted through Cabinet and then through Parliament. Or I could join the debate as Senior Minister responsible for infrastructure, who not only has to deal with the land that is being now vested in National Housing Corporation, but also having the roads and the water and all the electrical and so on infrastructure being put in place. And then all of the associated services that must come to the area because of that. Or I could join the debate because of the housing responsibility that I have for the East-West construction that we piloted to get those houses built, because a lot of this area will be done by duplex houses, which is East-West. So there are a number of reasons why I have to join this debate and to be able to explain to the people of Barbados how important it is to have this area vested in the National Housing Corporation. And that's the first thing. When government acquires land, Mr. Speaker, yes, you could go and put houses there. But how are you going to put a house there with no road for people to access it? How are you going to put a house there with no water opportunity for people to be able to get water, so as the member that just took his seat, so that they could get indoor plumbing into their house? How are you going to put a house there without having the electricity and the electricity poles and the lighting on the electricity poles and the internet? These days, we can't have a place without internet these days, Mr. Speaker. Everywhere you go, you've got the first thing here is, what's the Wi-Fi password? What's the Wi-Fi password? Because internet has become so critical and so important to everyday living. Even within buildings, you have a different Wi-Fi password in a different room sometimes. So all of this infrastructure must be in place before you can do housing. So sometimes we say, oh yes, we have this land. By the way, I heard, I remember talking about a land bank, but obviously we used it all because we went to do a withdrawal, and I couldn't find much for doing a withdrawal. I can't find much to do no withdrawal for this land bank that the honourable member said that was put in place. I went to do a withdrawal, Mr. Speaker, but I guess all was used up. Because apart from one in St. George, I could not find hardly any, because I wanted, just like the honourable member for St. George South, to get houses built. Because being houses built, apart from fixing the problem of homelessness and people needing houses and overcrowding and being able to sort the social issues associated with overcrowding. Mr. Speaker, I said before in this honourable chamber that we have bachelor units that were built in the Pine and in Belleville, in Beckles Road, bachelor units that start out for a husband and wife only. The husband and wife have 4 children or 5 children, but cannot get any place to go. Those 4 or 5 children have children. And everybody living, you know what, in a bachelor unit, Mr. Speaker. So we know that we have a significant housing problem. And this is why the member for St. George South and the Honourable Prime Minister and myself, we are committed to getting thousands of houses done in this country. And that's exactly what we're committed to do. Yes, government can't do all. We all know that government can't do all. So the private sector has to carry the brunt. The JADA is doing hundreds. Up in Ridge, there's 700 one spot, 400 another spot. Then they're doing also some, I think another 400 in the Lancaster next to Vespera Gardens. Then there are other developers that are doing houses. So that is the private sector doing some. Caribbean Housing Solutions is doing some. So yes, government is going to do some. Yes, the private sector is going to do some. And whether we like it or not, I am not a fan of high-rise, but we're going to have to do some high-rises too. Because there are just going to be some people that cannot afford to pay for a house themselves. They're just going to be, the Bible says the poor will always be with you. And I believe every single thing that is in the Bible is true and correct. Every single thing is true and correct. So if the Bible says the poor will always be with you, you have to be able to plan for that. So it means high rises. It means rent to own. It means land only. It means getting together with people who have land but don't have the money to get a house. And therefore you partner with them using the Housing Credit Fund, using the liquidity in the banks. The banks in Barbados have never been so liquid. 9 billion, I'm told, funds in the banks in Barbados, between the banks and the credit unions, 9 billion. And they're now coming with 3% and 2% because mortgages are cheaper now because they're so liquid. And it's no benefit to them to have money sitting down on and not being able to put it out for mortgages, for loans or mortgages. You know, I have said on multiple occasions that the banking institutions of this country have changed their mode of operation. There was a time that banks and lending institutions used to make money only on loans. They don't do that now. They just make the money on transaction fees. And the loan money is only extra. And that's part of the problem. And we need to get them back to understanding that their primary function in this country is to help us to build out Barbados. That means offering loans to people. That means giving people the opportunity to get a house or to improve the house, to do house improvements. And this is absolutely critical because if we do not have the airlift, as the Prime Minister said, Mr. Speaker, we got no control. We don't have no airline in Barbados. We ain't got no control over how often British Airways and Virgin and Caribbean and all that come here. We ain't got no control over that. But just today, I understand that our runway warped in London and not a plane could fly and could take off or land. We have no control. But you know what we have control of? How our people work in construction. How much houses we could get built. How much roads we could get done. So that people can improve their house. Because it's not only building new houses too, it is improving houses. And you know, whether we like it or not, Mr. Speaker, see the Hurricane Elsa? Hurricane Elsa took out many houses. But you know what? A part of that problem was dilapidated houses in the first place that we would have had to fix anyway, that if a high wind didn't have to be a hurricane come, it would have destroyed them. So I'm sorry to say, but it was almost like a culling as well of a lot of the houses that were bad, that we have now had to take on the responsibility of getting those houses fixed. And we understand that, and we take on that responsibility. Because you know what? We have to support our people. We have to support our people. Because that is the mandate of the Barbados Party, a socialist party. A socialist party that believes that we must support our people. And that's exactly what we have to do. So I am absolutely happy that we've now brought this all the way through to vest in this land in Sergeants, the National Housing Corporation, so that we could get the roads built and we could get the houses done. But let me go on, Mr. Speaker, because I have to respond to the member for St. Michael East. I have to respond. Because unlike the member for St. Michael East, who feels that all the houses in his area must get 75, 80, 90%, whatever it is, I not like that. Because I understand, you know, you can't make a government by yourself. There's nobody here that can make a government by themselves. How you make a government is count 1 + 1 + 1, and who has the greatest majority, then they make the government. Right? So if you can make a government by yourself, I want to see how you can do it. You can be the Minister of Prime Minister, the Minister of Housing, the Minister of Transport, the Minister of Tourism, the Minister, everybody can make a government by yourself. So you must have all the knowledge and nobody else. What I am saying, Mr. Speaker, is if you are going to allot, you have to share. You have to share. You can't expect all. You can't expect all. Then you're growing up with your brothers and your sisters, and they got one pot. You're gonna go eat out the whole pot? You can't eat out the whole pot. Mommy got to get some. Daddy got to get some. Your brother got to get some. Your sister got to get some. That's how it's worked. That's how it's worked in a family, Mr. Speaker. That's how it's worked in a political party. That's how it's worked in a government. You know why? Because poor people ain't only in St. Michael East. They got poor people all over Barbados. All over Barbados. From Christchurch West to St. James North. Even although he on the Platinum Coast, they still got some poor people up there. So poor people all about, and they got squatters all about Barbados too. All about. So don't think that St. Michael East is the only place that got poor people. Every place got poor people, and every place has a need for people to have housing. And we understand that. And we understand that we're going to share it because there's enough there for everybody. And we're going to make sure. The Honourable Member for St. George South, he said, and he went through all the places where he got, I could pick up his piece of paper. He got all about here, pick up one constituency. He got areas for everywhere. And he's building, I don't blow my own trumpet, but he's building on a good platform that I believe I left for him. And he's building on it and making it better. And that's exactly what we have to do. You know why, Mr. Speaker? You know why? Because we're a team. We're a team. It isn't a carpenter only that's built the house. You need the mason to build the house. You need the plumber to build the house. You need the roofer to do the house. You need the electrician to come and do it. You need the welder to come and do it. You need the painter to come and do it. In a one-man show in building a house. And the same way it can be in a one-man show when it comes to allotting and nowhere in St. Michael East. Everybody got a share. Because we have too many people in accommodation at Barbados Workers Union and accommodation at Codrington College are all about Barbados that trying to get back a house when their house was destroyed, that have problems with their landlord, that the landlord say you can't build back a house there. So you know what? You gotta find somewhere for them. Because we got to support and share. It can't be that the landlord say you can't build back for them. So therefore what, they must stay in College Union College forever? They must stay at the Barbados Workers Union forever? No, we got to build someplace and give them opportunity. Don't see it like you losing a house. See it like you gaining a constituent. That is how you need to see it. You gaining a constituent, not you losing an opportunity to provide for people that you grew up with, but you're gaining somebody new. And with those few words, and I think short, but you know what? Impactful. I ask that I will give an opportunity to speak another time on housing, because many, many housing debates will be coming.
We'll speak on a point of order. I will ask him to speak during his presentation.
Honourable member,
Just let me
please.
explain what the point of order is.
I need to know. Right. I just want to know what is the point of order.
It was almost explicit and not implicit. When I try to understand what the honourable member was saying, that I was speaking of poverty and poor people within the same perspective that a man who lays claims to being a capitalist.
Honourable member, that is not a point of order. It is not. Honourable member, it's not.
But I just figured that it was a misrepresentation.
There's nothing need to be clarified, honourable member. There's nothing need to be clarified. There's no point of order.
I just want to know you have a different...
There's no point. Honourable member, different perspective is not a point of order. The perspectives might be different. The opinions might be different. That's not a point of order, honourable member. With the greatest respect.
It's quite all right, sir.
And I have so rules.
All right.
I'm Murphy City Bridgetown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I entered this discussion, a debate at an interesting time. And I really want to start to speak to this resolution, to Westlands, from Sergeant Village to NHC, as we continue the revolution, the housing revolution in this country, Barbados. I want to start the debate, sir, with commending the senior minister from Christchurch West, who would have laid the foundation and laid the wicket for the honourable member for St. George South to continue to bat his hand in housing as we seek to provide 10,000 families in Barbados with much needed housing. Mr. Speaker, I want to have a serious discussion, though, on housing from the standpoint that when we talk about empowering people, when we talk about enfranchisement in this country, there is no enfranchisement and no empowerment like owning a piece of the rock, like having your own shelter, your own roof, turning your own key, sir, to be able to provide safe haven for your family, that they can live and work, learn, and play in this republic we call Barbados, sir. Sir, as we seek to vest more and more land, one of the things I think we need to focus on is this idea of carrying capacity. Right now, as you've heard many times, this government has continued on a trend of transformation. But one of the barriers to that transformation, sir, has been the fact that we have got a lot of cleaning up and a lot of catching up to do. When you look across all the sectors in Barbados, as a young boy coming up in this country, I had many of occasion to be proud at the advancement that this country had from particularly 1960s and 70s. I remember growing up in a society when I heard Barbados as a small country, the only country to do this, the first country to do that. There's a debate coming in this house, Mr. Speaker, sir, in relation to the Barbados Water Authority. And in that debate, I will speak more about the fact that this country back in 1963 had a water plan unlike none in the hemisphere. We were ahead of the game. We were ahead of the game in many aspects in this world. My concern is really between the 1980s and 90s and beyond. I think we've rested on our laurels and we've now started to pick back up steam. And it is in housing is one of the key areas that we are picking up steam. It is in education, again, we are picking up steam now, in not only literally in looking at STEAM, but also literally looking at education reform for the 21st century and beyond. I am very proud to stand with an administration that understands the need for housing, that understands the need to empower and enfranchise those out there, to provide not just opportunities for housing, sir, but affordable opportunities for housing. Imagine persons working for under $2,000 a month in present-day Barbados and what that could buy. But don't focus on that at the moment. Focus on the fact that the National Housing Corporation under the Ministry of Housing, the Honourable colleague, will provide these persons with affordable opportunities. Many times we spoke about affordable housing in this chamber, only to have an end result of finding out that they were not so affordable. Beyond the reach of the average man and beyond the reach of those working under $2,000 a month in this country. We have now brought a resolution and a plan and implementation and action, sir, to correct this atrocity. I heard the Prime Minister recently speaking about the possibility of using the solar roof project to cut mortgages in half. And she quoted a very interesting figure. Imagine paying $792 as a mortgage. $792. There are not many rents that you find at that cost. But imagine paying that as a mortgage, not now as dead money, but at the end of enfranchisement of owning your own home in this country. Mr. Speaker, sir, these things must be lauded. Because for too long, we have had a list that has been too long. 20, 30 years, 25,000 people. The Honourable Member for St. Michael East spoke about it. But they do not want us to pass glibly over it. Do you know how many Barbadians, particularly poor Barbadians, have to report to Country Road to give an indication that they are still interested in a home? For 20 years, sir, that is a life sentence. A life sentence of waiting to turn your own key in your own home. Sir, if we are able to pull this off, and I am sure we are, we will be ending social abuse, a social atrocity, social decay, social attacks committed on Barbadians, ordinary Barbadians in this country. How are we going to get this done? And I would like the Honourable Minister to understand, a lot of people have been asking me, and I have been answering with words. I am more excited to answer with actions. I am more excited to answer with photos and videos. They're asking me, and let's get real, straight talk. How we can get 10,000 houses when we struggle to repair 2,000 from Elsa? How we can do it? We got issues with contractors. We got issues with landlords. We got issues with title deeds. We got issues grammar, sir. But we better be in this together. Because I have a message for contractors in this country, sir. I ain't come to play. When you withhold your services, when you do not produce at the best of your ability, yes, the minister can get cursed, not you. But understand you are unfairing, disadvantaging one of your own. from being able to turn that key to their homes. We are in this together. Every landowner, every landlord, everybody that is playing a part in this has to understand that they are in this together. And I believe as a government, we have got to talk the people through to give them not just the hope, but the audacity of hope that they can turn their key. And that is what we have to do. We have to explain to them how we can get to 10,000. We just can't talk about the 10,000. You can't wish 10,000 houses into manufacturing and poof, it is there, sir. It takes the rolling up of sleeves. It takes the vigilance and the follow-up that I have seen from the senior minister and the minister on a daily basis to ensure that we now have, as I understand it, over 11,000 house spots. So that's the first step there already. As I understand it, the traditional houses may take a little longer to build. We have houses, the houses from Guyana, we got the East-West houses, we got the local contractors. So what we are doing is we are making sure that many hands make light work and many hands make many houses. That is what we are doing. And I have to sit down with constituent after constituent after constituent. As they ask these questions, I provide the answers. But remember, the meeting is not the outcome. Remember, my speech is not the outcome. The outcome is that house. The outcome is the keys in the house, because I know of an administration already not too long in this country that built houses and all that living it was rodents and had bush. 8-foot bush, they call it canes. So the output is that person that requires housing turning the key to that house, honorable member. Just remember that that is the output. That is what we are going for. You see, for me, this is a great moment in time. This is a moment in time that we must answer the call. I have thought long and hard about housing. Working as an advisor for poverty for the Prime Minister, many times the idea of housing came up. And I say, you know what? We have limited land. We have high cost of materials, high cost of labor, title deed issues. And I said, how can, it was almost a situation, a problem without a solution. Because we do high rise, we bring people together, you have the social problems, you have the electrical problems, you have the sewage problems. You have the cost overruns. Well, so if you go high, you get problems. If you go low, you got problems. So what do you do? And I ask myself these questions: how can we provide affordable housing for people in Barbados? And when I heard about the roof project, where you can give people land at next kin to nothing, or give them the ability to have the land, but take the roof and take the free sun that shines in Barbados 365 days, sir, unless it's a leap year, then it shines 366. And take that free resource given to us and allow that to pay for the land. You want something more brilliant than that, sir? So that's why innovation has to step in when you have these complex problems. And this administration has responded to that. And I would like all those in earshot, the supporters and the haters alike, to acknowledge good when they see good. Verily, verily, I say unto them, sir, it is time that we acknowledge what we are doing and the good that we are producing for our average people in this society. But the time is coming, sir, that innovation and that transformation must now accelerate. There's a time coming, I see, like a CC here, in this place where we can come and we can have to do some bulk single acquisitions. Because there are a lot of vacant lots in this country. There's a lot of dilapidated lots in this country. There's a lot of unfinished lots in this country. As a very, very young boy, I remember playing in some houses, and had only roofs, and had only windows. I will not say what I was playing, sir. But I can tell you some of those same very houses to this day remain without roof our windows. Yes, we might have to do some engineering inspections, some retrofitting, some remedial work. But I believe, sir, we have too many people in this country who require housing that we can let land sit on vacant lots, dilapidated lots, unfinished lots for 20, 30 years in this country while people bunking at people, while people setting up in vacant buildings all over the city of Bridgetown, left, right, and center. Shut a building too long in the city of Bridgetown. I don't know about the rest of your constituencies. In the city of Bridgetown, go and see what happened. People are going to set up shop because they want a roof over their heads. And I believe that this government, as it accelerates this housing revolution, that we can have the vesting land, not just in Sargent Village, but all from St. Lucie and Pye Corner to St. Philip. That is what we are going to have to do as an administration. We're going to have to bite the bullet and do the bold things that need to be done to ensure that there's a better life for all. Mr. Speaker, sir, in my constituency have been known for poor housing for quite a time. As I canvass, I move around and I connect, I see roofs that are not roofs. I see roofs that look like cheddar cheese, sir. I see floors that are extremely dangerous. Fell through a couple of them myself. I see sidings attacked by the termites and the wood ants. I see pit toilets in 2022, sir. In 2022, sir. In 2022, sir. You heard me correct the first time. And I am saying that it is time that we put these issues behind us. And that is why I am happy that we have a ministry, a minister of housing, a prime minister and a government, sir, that understands the turbulent times that we are in, but still understand that these social issues must be addressed and must be addressed frontally. And that is why when I think about all the various areas in my constituency, I understand that it is time for urban renewal, for urban regeneration. It is not time to talk about it, sir. It is time to do it. I reflected in here the last housing debate. I was not able to participate, but I wanted to participate. And I know the rules of the chamber. It does not allow for us to quote from the newspaper. But don't worry, I don't have a newspaper. I have it as a printout. I print it from offline. So ain't a newspaper no more, sir. And it talk about in 1973, city slums must go. It was the Honourable Tom Adams spoke about it. City slums must go. But while taking a break, the Honourable Member for St. Michael East reminded me, you can go further back than 1973. You can go back to 1936, and after the riots and the Moyne Commission, it spoke about the deplorable housing and the deplorable social issues in the city of Bridgetown. So we've got some work to do, because as we pass baton, from government to representative, our job is to ensure that we left it better than we found it, and that the generation next will make sure that it is good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good is better and your better is best. And that is why it is time, as the saying goes, that we now face it and fix it. Because, sir, I do agree. City slums must go. In conclusion, sir, when you think about areas like Cat's Castle, New Orleans, some particular houses are troubling me in Hunt Street, Chapman Lane, Ellis Village too, Nelson Street, Lightfoot Lane, Sobers Lane, Mahogany Lane, and the environs. I think it would be criminal of me, sir, to not stand here and represent, to not stand here and advocate, to not stand and sit anywhere I go from today and beyond in recognition that it is time for action. Not just to stand and talk, but to lobby and advocate and ensure that the housing injustice is corrected. I feel confident thus far that it will be. I put my confidence, not to regulate man, but I put my confidence in the Minister of Housing, member for St. George South, and this administration that we are not only equal but greater than the task at hand. So it is now left to be seen as we put all hands on deck to ensure that we give him the support that is required, the support that is necessary to ensure that we correct the ills of housing, not just in the city of Bridgetown, but as the member for Christchurch West said, every single constituency, parish, district, and community in Barbados. Mr. Speaker, sir, I had the pleasure of touring with the Congresswomen Barbara Lee and Robin Kelly, the head of the IMF, the IDB, all types of officials. But I was very clear with them, this is no show and tell. This is no pony show for you to come and say, yes, I see poverty in Barbados. This is to inspire you to action. Because when we talk about urban renewal by blocks, it is time that I don't want to go in and port shops. I want 4s and 6s in the city of Bridgetown. As we do, we rebuild areas at a time, sir. That is what I am talking about. I don't want no 10 house, no 20 house. I am not ungrateful. But there is too much suffering, too much deplorable housing for human beings. Because let's get real, let's talk about it, man. Straight talk. Many of us in these chambers, when we sit on the throne, sir, on our porcelain and or whatever, like kings and queens, and relax ourselves, too many Barbadians have to go outside and worry about the roaches and the centipedes, and lights, and frogs, toads. It is time that we put that behind us. I am convinced, sir, that we are on the right trajectory. I am convinced, sir, that we have the right energy. But, sir, I will continue to speak once there is breath in my body to ensure and remind us to keep that energy and keep that momentum going, to ensure that as today we stand on the 6th month of this administration, July 19, that by the 1 year, by the end of this year, we can look back and feel proud that we have met or surpassed our targets without excuse where housing is concerned in this country. Exactly. As I said earlier, Mr. Speaker, at this 6-month mark, after thousands of calls, after meeting over 139 persons in 112 meetings, I remind us that the meeting is not the outcome. What I want to report in the next 6 months is results, tangible results, sir. A better life for all starts with what it is we are doing. And we have to make certain considerations. I see Elon Musk and his tiny house project. These are things that we may have to look at and consider. We Barbadians have gotten accustomed to living in large homes. And then, the children move out and you live in a ghost town. We must have big hosting places with all the couches, the three-piece set that nobody can sit in unless it is Christmas, covered on with plastic. But it may be time we got to get a little more conservative and build a little smaller and build more houses for less. Yeah. So we got to look at the culture. One of the things I feel proud of is what may be coming. I don't want to speak out of turn because a lot of projects is coming. You hear about them and you don't know. But I understand some soaring will be done in some areas that desperately need it. And I will be following up on that as well because it's about time. When you think of the housing situation, in particularly Chapman Lane, Emerton, and the environs, and the fact that we got the Bridgetown sewage plant right there, sir, and people not connected to the plant. It's time to fix that social atrocity once and for all. And I understand this administration has plans, sir. And they will not only have plans, they will have the member for the city of Bridgetown to remind them of the plans, to lobby them to make sure that the plans are on stream and that they are completed in a timely fashion. Mr. Speaker, sir, we are in turbulent times. But we have impressive policies. We must have impressive execution now. I hope that these few words keep us inspired, that we will stay the course to ensure that there's a better life for all as we, the Barbados Labour Party administration, brings Barbados through the housing revolution to ensure that every possible Barbadian has the dignity of a proper shelter over their houses and that they can feel proud to be Barbadians. With these few words, sir, I want to support this resolution to vest the land in Sergeant Village. I am obliged, sir.
Honourable Member St. George South. Christchurch. So Michael East. Your mic is on, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to wrap up the debate, and I heard some words being spoken just now, words like opposition. I want to know where that word came from in this chamber, because, Mr. Speaker, while I recognize all the contributions, and I want to thank the members for the contributions made in this very important debate. And I use a phrase today, I coined a phrase today, Maslow Ministries. And if you understand Maslow, those who understand Maslow's hierarchy of needs would know. A member for
The social scientists would, Honourable
member for St. Michael's South East.
Honourable Member, the social scientists will.
Thank
They
you.
do.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Speaker.
They will.
Respect due to the Speaker. The member for St. Michael's South, he's in one of Maslow's ministries.
St. Michael East also, he knows about Maslow.
He knows, but he didn't speak like that.
Yeah, but he
earlier
knows
today.
about Maslow theory.
He's my good friend.
I can assure you that.
Because-
You Honourable Member Cedar Bridgetown also.
Yeah, the member
assure
for
you that.
St.
I can
The
assure
member
you
for St. Michael's Southeast is in a Maslow ministry. The member for St. Philip West is in a Maslow ministry. And when you talk about air, water, shelter, sleep, member for St. George South is in a Maslow ministry. And what is most interesting is that this is the first time a government will embark on two things. And I said it earlier for those who weren't in this chamber. Rebuilding 1,704 houses from a storm, a freak storm and Hurricane Elsa, at a cost of over $100 million. A government is doing that. Sometimes I believe that some of the members are still not understanding what this government has embarked upon when they speak in this chamber. No other government in the history has embarked on such a project. And if you looked at the track record, first world countries are rebuilding houses after a storm, the minimum length of time is 14 months. Check the history, do the research. But a small country like Barbados with minimum resources, and we are on track to finish. Don't mind the near series, we can repair 1,704 houses. We will do it this year. They'll be completed. Everybody look for them to finish in 6 months. When the best case scenario gives 14 months to rebuild a country after a hurricane or a storm. And we have gone 12 months and we are over 50%. Now I don't get in this chamber and make empty promises. I heard a member for St. James North who sat on this front bench before and sat in the cabinet before. And he understands the role of a cabinet. And when we make policy decisions, it is collective responsibility as a cabinet. And I will speak later on the whole aspect of people with disability. Because the member spoke as if he's still asking the question, when this government in its manifesto and everything that it has promulgated and discussed, have placed persons with disability at the forefront of everything. Why must housing be different? Housing can't be different. I just sent all of my officers within housing to meet with the member. A subcommittee formed to address various issues across the board with people with disability, and 10% of the houses we will be building. If you go to the city right now, member for the city, I will take you on a journey. You have 36 units being constructed presently. I ain't talking about 6 units. 36. And 10% of those have been allocated with people with disability. And I want to speak because this Prime Minister, our Prime Minister, the Honourable Mayor Mortley, because sometimes I think when we speak, the member for St. Michael Southeast. Northeast, sorry. Greenfield, urban renewal is prime, and I have an officer, a housing planner responsible for urban renewal in this country, who sits on the Soaring Project meeting chaired by the Deputy Prime Minister, looking at relocation and finding housing for people. And I can speak to Rock Hall relocation. We sat years and years and years and years, and what successive government, the member for St. Philip South, at Rock Hall, 237 houses will be relocated. And the honourable member knows, the member for Christchurch West, we have started building, we have some 22 units built thus far. We have relocated 8 persons thus far into the Parsland extension. So we are dealing with our issues. We have persons living in the Bell. We have persons at Rock Hall living on a dump. And successive governments left those persons there for years, government after government. And this government now, we have provided land and we are building houses. We have infrastructure started at Concordia Gardens. And if you do an in-city plan, I will make sure that after the Prime Minister has certified this plan, I have a forum on housing in this country so that persons truly understand that this government ain't making any sport about housing. Concordia Gardens, Clifton, Parsland Extension. This is where we are moving 237 persons from off the dump at Rock Hall. This government and the poo-poo government ain't making a sport about housing in this country. That's the first thing we did when we came to office, bring legislation here, employ social workers to address the issues. Last month I was there, where a contractor intended to push down 9 houses, and I think they have tendered out the others. We are not making sport about housing. But I go back to Greenfield, Solaris Court, East-West, like Gear Steel Project, where we are dealing with urban renewal. We are taking people from Greenfield and going into Solaris Court. We have to do it piece by piece. We don't have $1 billion sitting down to do this. We got to do it piece by piece to address the issues in the urban corridor, because we know there are challenges in the urban corridor that present themselves to other things that I don't want to discuss here. 16 East-West, like Gear Steel at White Park, Solaris Court we call it. We are taking people out of Greenfield and putting them there as we address the issues. And when we go into Greenfield and we fix, then we keep moving the people. Cats Castle, Mason Hall Street, the Gretna Green project we have to remove. That's a piece of land there. Talk about urban renewal. Exmouth, heard the member for Christchurch West spoke about Exmouth. So those are 3 areas: Chapman Lane, Kensington New Road project, and that's over 50 houses so far with the Kensington New Road project. And when we bring in Exmouth, And when we bring in Cat's Castle, high rise, oh my gosh. We have enough land. It is our land. I don't know where the doubtful Thomases reside, but I ain't none. Because I know I have this. And the honourable member, pick it up. You should ask me to touch my sheet here. Thanks, the honourable member. This shows us land for 11,766 houses. And this thing about putting houses in everybody's constituency, let me tell you. We will put houses where we have land located. The Housing Credit Fund has about $80 million in it. You will get, you got a most land. Member for St. Philip South, he will get housing. I can spend 2 hours discussing this, but I don't want to detain this chamber. We will have other days to discuss housing because I have to put the doubtful Thomases to rest in this country. I have to put them to rest in this country because this government is serious about housing, whether it is me as the member for Christchurch West, it is whoever. This is a government that has embarked on a policy to put 10% of its housing allocated for people with disability. This is a government that has allocated 5% of the public funding to reserve for emergency and social housing. This government, but the naysayers out there and other places will comment in a way to make people believe that this government is twiddling its thumb. 1,400 houses will be constructed in the financial year 2022 to 2023, and I believe there are going to be more. The private sector is part of this. Why? If you go to Chancery Lane, joint venture partner, and I answer the questions as I go along because I have them here. It's quite obvious National Housing can't build all of the houses. We can't build all. Any person out there believe that National Housing can build 10,000 houses, they're crazy. In this plan this year, National Housing will build 159 units out of the 400 by themselves, out of the 1,400. And I'm saying to you, UDC will be building some. RDC started. So we have a holistic approach to house building, not just NHC. NHC will form joint venture partners. Why we vested the land in NHC? Because that partnership, this land that has been vested, the 1.734 acres, is a joint venture between NHC and East West, like Gears Steel Houses. The member for St. Michael East, and I go to you now, sir. I told you about units, and you poopa and tell me I'm only giving you 15 units, and 15 units can't house your people.
12, it is 12.
12 units can't house your people. There's 12 one side, and then you got another 20 coming, or 18 something on the other side. That's 30. 30 can't house your 500 people. Right? But what we have, 40 acres of land at Lower Burney, next door to you, and next door to me, that will be allocated some to you, the member for St. Michael East. So tell your people they will go to Lower Burney. You may lose a vote, but such is life. But we are not about votes when we discuss housing. We are putting people, enfranchising people. We are not about votes when we deal with housing. We are enfranchising people and putting them in houses. And this thing about land and land bank, I challenge the member for St. James North to find the land bank for me. And I can take him into housing. 30 years ago. 30 years ago. But where was 30 years ago? Now, there is a 25,000 backlog of applicants in national housing. A 25,000 backlog. I can stand here and I can boldly say that the 10,000 houses over the 5-year period can't solve the entire housing problem in this country. We need more. The member for St. Michael Central can't speak, but he knows that there has to be some relocation for his people as well. He'll be factored in, just like the member for St. Michael East who spoke for him. I don't think he can speak for the member for St. Michael Central, though. But at the end of the day, the urban renewal project, the soaring of Bailey Alley, the soaring project that the Deputy PM is in charge of, will see persons being relocated in several areas. Chapman Lane, Bailey Alley in St. George, Greenfield, all of these places. And of course, housing is on your team. Member for St. Michael Southeast, housing is on their team. And what they're looking at is location to house these persons, social housing, people with disability. These are fundamental aspects of housing in this country, especially within the urban corridor that we are addressing. And we can't do it all by one. So you're getting 36 now in the city. Then you're going to get Exmouth in the city. Then you're going to get Mason Hall Street in the city. And these is to address the issues in the Chapman Lanes and the Greenfield area, the density issues. Then we go into Lower Burney this year to address the density issues in the Pine. Then we have Searles, 60 acres at Searles, 100 acres at Vineyard. And you telling me we can't build 10,000 houses? I heard the member for the city talk about derelict properties and vacant lots. And if you all were listening to me this morning, I said there is a paper with the Attorney General that was prepared by the Ministry of Housing, so the Attorney General can address the legislation that will seek to deal with the 35,000 or 25,000 derelict and vacant lots in this country. We never did that before in this country. We never did it before. I want us to have faith in what we are doing. Sterling, you will get Sterling. You will speak to the member for St. Michael South, and we will sit down and we will do what we have to do. But we are not fooling people. I heard words in here used like fooling people. This government don't fool people. We don't fool people. We address issues as a government. And I will not be a part of no government that's seeking to fool my citizens of this country, not me. I will resign first, because I'm not fooling people in this country. We will not do it. This housing silent revolution is a reality, and we have started. And I told you all, we have a mortgage fair in national housing this weekend. Every single person who has applied, and we have to apologize. We are government. I can't take responsibility for what happened years ago. But we are government now, and we have to fix the problem. There should be no backlog of 25,000 applicants and no ministry sitting down, persons with housing. No. And we came to office, and this term when the Prime Minister announced we will build 10,000 houses, we addressed the backlog, and we know how many civil servants, how many policemen, how many nurses, how many of them were in that backlog. Within 2 months, we had that done. The Prime Minister would have liked it done in a month. I have no difficulty with that, because she recognized the urgency and the need to move with alacrity and address these issues, which are fundamental to our people. Right to own. I heard us speak about persons who go to the banks and can't qualify. Now, we have started, and again in the city, the White Park, 20 units that are at White Park are right-to-own units that will be completed by the end of September, and I'm hoping before. Those are right-to-own. Those are persons that we have challenges, with accessing loans, and these are persons vulnerable below the poverty line. We've started the process, but if we sit down here and we expect that announcing a housing revolution, and within 6 months of announcing it, we're going to build 5,000 houses in 6 months. Then we don't understand. The member for Christchurch Christchurch West told us about the longest aspect of building a house is what? Infrastructure. And I want to thank you for laying the foundation and also providing the support now as the infrastructure minister, because we are getting things done faster. We will be building or engaging in infrastructure works at Concordia Gardens, Clifton, Ginger Works, Coconut Hall. I just said next week I'm going with the member for St. Lucie at Coconut Hall to let him break ground and be proud that his people will be getting housing. This whole issue of debt settlement for persons, I want to thank the member for Christchurch West and the member for St. Andrew who started it under his tenure, under our tenure in government. The Debt Settlement Act 2021 it is. Pre-2008, persons will be paid with Series J bonds. We are addressing it. 2018. We are addressing that, member for St. James North. We are. We have a log. And we review the log at our management meetings. And some are coming to Attorney General's office. Some are being finalized month by month. But we know where we are right now as a government, so we really have to do things not only with alacrity, but we have to be wise in how we allocate our scarce resources. So I stand to wrap up this lovely debate to let you know that persons in the low-income category, persons earning less than $2,000, will be afforded a home for $90,000. Where in the world can you find that? And we're utilizing renewable energy. Go to Vesper Gardens and you will see at Lancaster. The Jurvilla homes. We have a paper with the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance who are looking at that cabinet paper for us to get the pilot project on the way to bring in the hardwood houses. We are presently displaying on 3D and at the mortgage fair on this weekend, and there'll be more. We will be utilizing our digital platform to engage people in terms of what these houses will look like, what the amenities are, everything. And we start with a mortgage fair. The Hope Inc., the commercial entity, had mortgage fairs, and they're charged with the responsibility of building. That was formed by this government. So I just want the public to know that the 10,000 house silent revolution for housing is a reality, and we have started. And we have started counting the houses and homes. Persons have qualified for homes at Vesper Gardens. Persons have been allocated. Names have been submitted by the member for the city for persons to go into White Park. 20 persons. Names were submitted. I don't know if you can get all 20 because, like we said, we can't be selfish. This is not a selfish government. I will let you give the member next to you one. The member for St. Michael East, at least give him one in the city. So he ain't only getting at Hackett Hall, but he will get some in the city.
He only got $4.99 at the fine.
Yeah. So he needs 500 houses. We giving him 20 up there, and then you give him one, so a subtract. It's less than 500 now. But, Mr. Speaker, I enjoyed this debate. And while we are investing this 1.734 acres of land in national housing at Sargent Village, we will be doing a lot more vesting. Housing resolutions will be part of the Parliament agenda on a regular basis, because we are committed to building 10,000 houses at a minimum in this country. And with those words, Mr. Speaker, I beg that this resolution now pass.
The question is that this resolution do now pass. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. All those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This resolution stands passed.
The new models.
Honourable Leader, Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And with that, we've come to the end of today's sitting. I therefore beg to move the adjournment of the House until Tuesday, the 26th of July at 10 a.m.
The question is that this honourable chamber be adjourned until Tuesday, the 26th day of July at 10 a.m. in the forenoon. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This honourable chamber stands adjourned until Tuesday, the 26th day of July at 10 a.m. in the forenoon.